So on June 16th, 2026, Commodore International announced the Commodore Callback 8020, a modern flip phone to bridge the gap between retro and modern tech, a means for people to disconnect from the distractions of smartphones and social media, and go back to a simpler means of texting, calling. Oh yeah, and then there's WhatsApp. A curious thing to see in 2026. So, how much is it gonna cost?
What the fuck?
Now before I continue, a quick history lesson. Commodore International was founded in 1976 by Jack Tramiel and Irvin Gold. The company was established amidst the rise of home computers within the tech industry, having previously produced and repaired typewriters and calculators during the 1950s and 60s under the name Commodore Business Machines. Commodore released the PET computer in 1977, a runaway success along with the Apple II and Radio Shack TRS-80 that same year. In 1980, they released the Commodore VIC-20 in Japan, and worldwide the following year. And again, it was a decent success, with a wide range of games and software. Marketed as a viable alternative to home game consoles like the Atari 2600 and Mattel's Intellivision, they got William Shatner as their spokesperson through an effective marketing campaign. And with that, Commodore's sales went further when they started selling their computers at toy and discount stores such as Kmart, which was a first in the industry. But it was in 1982 when Commodore's most iconic product, the Commodore 64, was released, and before long, the VIC-20 was pushed to the side. With their focus on powerful but affordable low-end computers with great graphics and sound, they dominated the computer market, at least for a time. Commodore was doing quite well for themselves, but internal conflicts regarding the company's long-term direction led to founder Jack Tramiel leaving Commodore to take over Atari's withering computer division amidst the video game crash of 1983, to varying levels of success before he and his family backed out of the tech industry in the mid-1990s. Commodore bought out a growing computer company called Amiga in 1984 as a means to compete with Atari's upcoming computer, the Atari ST, and so the Commodore Amiga was born. Unfortunately, despite its powerful hardware, the Amiga failed to gain momentum with a confusing marketing campaign, minimal software, and high cost. So to bounce back, Commodore released the low-end Amiga 500 and Amiga 2000 in 1987, and with that, Commodore was finally pulling ahead of Atari and gained a substantial following. But their renewed success wouldn't last. With soured relations with retailers, consumers, and developers, due in part to Jack Tramel's business approach during his tenure at Commodore, and in turn their soured reputation, Commodore was starting to die out. Commodore's fate was ultimately sealed with the rise of IBM PCs and PC clones, and particularly the release of id Software's Wolfenstein and Doom. And in 1994, Commodore filed for bankruptcy. Okay, let's slow back down a bit. The Commodore brand was tossed around for the next 30 years, up until 2025, when YouTuber Retro Recipes, also known as Perifractic, established Commodore International Corporation. Having obtained the right to Commodore's various trademarks, IPs, and assets, they announced and eventually released the Commodore 64 Ultimate, a modernized reproduction of the original Commodore 64 computer, later that same year. And it was very well received, with its modern features combined with its faithful and high-quality reproduction of the original computer. I actually had plans to get one at the time, but having scored an original boxed Commodore 64 off of eBay, along with a bulk bundle of software and accessories around the same time, I passed on it. I had to do some cleaning and restoration work, but I'm happy to say my Commodore 64 has served me well ever since. So what's the deal with the Commodore Callback? Well, while the Commodore Callback is a neat idea, seemingly capitalizing on the trend of dumb phones, fuck, even saying it makes me feel gross, there's a multitude of issues that I have with it that I surprisingly don't seem to feel alone on. To start with, it's an overpriced flip phone in 2026. Yes, social media use is an ever-growing problem for many people, and so I get what the Commodore Callback's trying to do in providing an offline alternative for people who want to disconnect from social media. But then you have the price. With a starting price of $549 US or $776.52 Australian, excluding tax, even with the pre-order discount, it's still way too expensive to justify picking up one, especially with what you get. Now to clarify, when the new Commodore was first being established, Commodore President and CEO Christian Simpson, known as Perifractic Online, stated that the intent was to not only bring back Commodore at its prime with modernized legacy products, but also to bring the company and brand to the 21st century with what he calls digital minimalism, which I could get behind. But then there's another problem that I don't see a lot of people talking about, and that is the new Commodore's embrace of AI. I currently don't see any tangible benefit in the use of AI, and I haven't seen much on more practical and ethical AI solutions that benefit people in the long term. With AI currently being developed by companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and Microsoft to name a few, in its current form, and with the way it's been forced into our lives, I have strong moral and ethical objections towards AI, especially across creative circles and industries. And then there's Perifractic's videos on YouTube, where he predominantly uses AI to make his videos, which at times comes across as quite disturbing. Even beyond my moral objections towards AI, it comes across like the product isn't even remotely ready to showcase or even release. And for a young company like the new Commodore, trust is something that's very important to establish with people early on. They gained said trust for the most part with the Commodore 64 and 64C Ultimate, but to jump straight into something like this right after, with heavy use of AI-generated visuals to market it, it's not exactly confidence-inspiring, beyond the price and beyond its features. Like myself, many are critical over the decision to release a modern flip phone, as opposed to releasing more legacy products like a modernized Amiga computer. Okay, so whilst I was writing the script for this video, the Commodore Callback's launch price was reduced. So now it's $399 US or 580 Australian. But then there's still like the discount. So they've acknowledged criticism towards the price, like the launch price for this phone. And it's an improvement, sure, but it still doesn't dispel the concern I have regarding the phone. Like, we still don't have any new details or any videos of the phone actually being used. I mean, yeah, price, good start, but yeah, that still doesn't alleviate concerns. So overall, as much as I want to support the new Commodore's endeavors, I honestly don't think I can. Now, could this change in the future? Maybe, but right now, I think this is a step in the wrong direction, which is disappointing because cases where legacy companies of years past are revitalized are rare to come by. But yet again, there's reasons why said instances are rare. So for me, I'd much rather support the current modding community supporting Commodore's legacy products that continue to feed life into these classic pieces of tech, as well as companies like Retro Games Limited that pay homage to many classic retro computers with their faithful modern replicas. Even then, my phone is serving me well, so I think I'm good on that front. But what do you all think? Are you planning on picking up a Commodore Callback flip phone? Let me know your thoughts on today's video in the comments below. Anyways, thanks for watching everyone. And as always, stay safe and take care.